Cleveland, Ohio, the Cleveland Indians' baseball winning streak sadly has come to an end. Hillary Clinton's blame game losing streak sadly continues. In her new campaign memoir, What Happened, and during promotional interviews, Clinton ultimately blames FBI Director James Comey for her loss to Donald Trump, instead of the many mistakes she and her campaign staff made. Those mistakes include not choosing Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown as her running mate. Clinton continues to claim that Comey's announcement of the FBI reopening the email investigation, in the closing days of the election, killed her campaign's winning momentum. What momentum? Clinton had no momentum. Long before Comey briefly reopened the investigation, Clinton's campaign had been struggling, especially in the Rust Belt states Trump had been targeting. In the closing weeks of the campaign, Clinton continued to be unable to draw the enthusiastic crowds that had routinely filled Trump and Bernie Sanders rallies. Clinton's campaign generated no enthusiasm because it had no message, let alone a message that resonated with voters. It was no secret that the Trump campaign was orchestrating a Rust Belt state strategy down the narrow path available to the campaign for victory. Yet Clinton spent too little time in the states that would prove to be the difference, especially in the closing days of the campaign, when Trump was busy hustling for votes. Clinton had lost the Michigan primary and struggled in Ohio. Often she was tied with Trump in the bellwether state, and ultimately lost it. On her book tour, Clinton has said sexism played a role in her loss. Yet she can't explain why millions of women voted for Trump. Clinton says Bernie Sanders severely damaged her campaign, while only superficially acknowledging the self-inflicted damage she and her staff did. Clinton claims none of her campaign's fatal flaws were actually fatal. Even Joe Biden gets knocked by Clinton after he justifiably chastised the party for ignoring middle and working class Americans. What happened? Listen to Joe Biden. What happened was that this was the first campaign that I can recall where my party did not talk about what it always stood for, and that was how to maintain a burgeoning middle class. You didn't hear a single solitary sentence in the last campaign about the guy working on the assembly line making $60,000 a year and a wife making $32,000 as a hostess in a restaurant, Biden said while visiting the University of Pennsylvania. What happened? Listen to the Steve Bannon-Charlie Rose interview. In the full Steve Bannon's full interview with Charlie Rose on 60 Minutes, Bannon said Clinton proved she had no earthly idea where the country is at. Bannon told Rose the smart guys, the populists in the Democratic Party got the economic populism that swept Trump into the White House. Sanders understands, Sherrod Brown understands, Tim Ryan understands, Seth Moulton understands, Tulsi Gabbard understands, and the guys around Schumer do, Bannon said. Bannon, Sherrod Brown should have been Clinton VP pick. Rose asked Bannon if any of the Democrats he praised would have beaten Trump. The sigh of relief I had was when Sherrod was not picked as her running mate. If Sherrod Brown had been the VP instead of Tim Kaine it would have been much harder, replied Bannon. For any nominee who truly got the mood of the country, Brown would have been an obvious VP pick. He was a tailor-made for this electorate as Joe Biden would have been. The anti-NAFTA Brown has spent his entire career championing the cause working-class voters and American manufacturing. On top of that, Brown came from the key battleground state of Ohio. How clueless is Clinton? Clinton recounts in her memoir how she mistook Representative Jason Chaffetz for Reince Priebus during the inauguration. She writes that Chaffetz introduced himself, but she didn't know who he was and initially thought it was Priebus. It's a stunning admission. Clinton thought it was a humorous antidote. In fact, it's alarming that someone who expected to be president didn't recognize the difference between the head of RNC and the chair of a congressional committee that investigated her. Clinton's memoir is not helpful to the Democratic Party. In the memoir and her promotion of it, she just reconfirms the reasons why voters ultimately rejected her. The focus should be on who will write the next, new chapter for the Democratic Party, and whether they have acknowledged and learned from the mistakes of the Clinton campaign that cost the party the presidency. Demdicka deal freaks out far-right, Darcy cartoon Cleveland, Ohio, President Trump, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan spent Thursday giving contradictory comments about news of a Trump-Dem deal on DACA that excluded funding for the border wall. But what is clear is that the far right has flipped out over the potential deal, and that Trump is more at ease dealing